Peace, what's good? This is your brother Pharaoh. Back again. We're doing a live interview this time, following up on the Marcus Garvey videos that you can find video 1, video 2, video 3 on the channel Chadagi77 on YouTube. And that's spelled CHA. And it'll be a semicolon DA semicolon GE7, the number 7, and then spell out SEVEN on YouTube. That's Chadagi7, the number, and then 7. And you can find the videos on Marcus Garvey titled Marcus Garvey, Friend or Foe. And there's 3 different videos that go into some things that you may have heard on Garvey and some things you may not have heard. So one of the reasons that initially we decided to go into Marcus Garvey, several reasons as a matter of fact. One of the reasons was there was a saying that Marcus Garvey was a forerunner to Noble Drew Ali. And then looking at times and dates, something just didn't line up with the times and dates of Marcus Garvey and Drew Ali. That was one of the reasons. The other reasons I decided to look into Garvey was because a relative of mine I found out recently was a Garveyite, or actually invested in Garvey heavily, and lost some assets. And then I decided to look into what happened with the relative, and then we came across information in Cuba and some other places that Garvey was accused of defrauding a lot of people out of their estates. That was shocking at the time because I had never heard that in high school or in college. So I decided to look into that. And of course, that led me to a lot of articles in the 1900s by a lot of our newspapers at the time that was exposing Garvey's deeds, and some of it's very harsh. So that's the reason that I decided to look into Marcus Garvey, those 2 reasons. So we are here in Valley Vision Studios in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix Valley. So if you happen to be interested in doing any podcast, or you need any type of photography or video work, or even consultation on getting your podcast going and up and running, you can feel free to email Valley Vision. And the email address is going to be blaime, BLANE, B media @gmail.com. That's blaime, BLNE, B media @gmail. And that is just the letter B to get your podcast up and running. Now, we're on location. Sometimes we move around a little bit. So we just happen to be in Phoenix out here at the hottest time in the damn year. We in hell right now. Seen the devil on the way here. He asked me for a ride. So anyway, that's what we are. And then we also have connections with Media Made Magazine, a good friend of mine, Sangria, who's on the boards right now. So if you're interested in getting your independent music exposed, or even if you're established and you're looking to do some interviews or even be in a magazine that's nationally published across the nation, you can email Sangria, San Lawrence, at MediaMadeMagazine@gmail. MediaMadeMagazine@gmail. They have podcasts, have a 24/7 app that you can download on your smartphone or Android. That's Media Made Music. You can also get your music on the app. We do shows and events. We cover that as well. I assist the brother sometimes in what he needs. So feel free to make sure you reach out to Media Made Magazine @gmail.com if you're interested in that aspect of the music industry. Brother's been around for a while. So my guest, the first guest that I have sitting next to me is Brother Chris Felton, and he is going to briefly introduce himself, and then we'll go to Suraj, who's on my right. He'll introduce himself as well and give some information on what they do and what they can assist you with, and a little bit of their background. So go ahead, Chris, take it away.
Hi, my name is Chris Felton, as Brother Tarvis stated. I am the founder of the Life Foundation. What we do there is we assist mainly single fathers in dealing with the court systems and trying to obtain their children. But we also help single mothers as well. But we tend to focus more on the men, because there's really not any type of platform or assistance out here from males. So we're just trying to build up that network. So that's what I do.
And I got a couple quick questions also. So you are, you have affiliation with some of the autochthonous tribes in the Americas. Can you get that background as well?
Wouldn't necessarily say affiliated, but background. Yeah. Just in doing like a little research, um, found out that my like on my mother's side, uh, it's a gala, and then because of where I grew up at, more than likely with my father on my father's side, it's Cherokee, but no official affiliation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, brother. Is there an email they can reach out to you to get more information on your program as far as helping fathers?
Yeah, the Life Foundation, LYFE, and then foundation 0212 at gmail.com. And life is an acronym for living your full expectation.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. We just want to check on some things real quick to make sure the cameras are working. Saying I'm not seeing a red light on Chris's camera when he's speaking.
All right, I got you.
All right. So while Sam is doing that, we're going to go to Suraj. So, brother Suraj, can you introduce yourself, get some background on as well?
Same thing. Well, of course, I'm Suraj from River Bay. Right, and one of the things that I'm involved with is we have a financial team, and we deal with all kinds of securities. Right, it doesn't make a difference what type of security it is, whether they're mortgages, car loans, student loans, titles, child support. Whatever it is, we take care of those things financially. And then the last thing, we do a lot of things for land, particularly land patents, mortgages. So, of course, in order for you to find that out, of course, my email is surajamirbey@yahoo.com. So hit me up.
Appreciate it, brother. You also have heritage, man, with autochthonous tribes in the Americas as well. So could you get that information?
Yes. I am part of the Pamunkey tribe. We can say clan, right? Pamunkey, or you can see the MU in there. The MU being it's going to be Moors. So basically, all these tribes really are Muslim and Moors all at the same time. Some are indigenous; they remain to stay in their indigenous cultures. Others chose to join a larger portion of the empire. So yes, so that's going to be very interesting. We'll get into that with Marcus Garvey too. So.
Absolutely, absolutely appreciate it. So we definitely want to point that out because there's movements out there that are really knocking Moors, and they're trying to. And a lot of the movements don't understand that some of us Moors have been around for a long time, and some of the people we've talked to have been around for even longer. And there's information that we have to get permission to tell you some things. So, but when the time comes, we're gonna knock them niggas over the head that keep running their mouth about who's a Moor, who's not, and what a Moor really is. So at the same time, I definitely want to mention we had done a show, several shows before. Brother Chris Felton used to do a show with KRDP Radio, which is a local channel in the Valley, and he had us on years ago when we discussed Moorish Tartaria, the history of Tartaria, and it's really a classic interview because it was Brother Chris, myself, and Brother Suraj, and we're with another gentleman, Glenn Miller, who was very well known, very well established, what you would say, scholar as far as in American history. And of course, you call white gentlemen, European gentlemen, you're never going to see an interview quite, or hear an interview quite like that, where you have indigenous, autochthonous, and then Moors, and we are discussing history with someone of the likes that his reference is only pretty much what you would call United States or American history. And I believe he has several degrees as well in the topic. So it is a classic interview. You probably won't ever hear anything like it. A lot of people don't like to engage in that, but we just let you know we're not afraid of none of that. So is the history of Moorish Tartaria, and then the other one is Ancient Names of America. And you can also find those on the same channel, the Chadagi 77 on YouTube as well. So we're going to jump into Marcus Garvey. But before we do that, I want to make it sure that you comprehend how nationality plays into land. So with that, I'm going to let Brother Suraj take it away to explain to you how nationality ties in to land ownership and how it secures your land. So go ahead.
Okay, so we have two laws, international laws, known as, one is Unsanguineous and the other one is Jus Soli. One is for land and the other one is by blood. Okay, so your blood and your heritage is always connected to wherever landmass you come from. Okay, so that is the international law of blood. So nationality, when it comes to your nation state, is very important because that depends on how they're going to proceed with you in law. Okay, and that flag they call the United States. It's not a flag; it's a commerce flag. There's six nations there that they were dealing with that had to do with the local law and legislation. But we can get into that because this whole thing that that I'm seeing with I want to say Marcus Garvey, it's about land and labor. It's about nationality.
So how does nationality play into your actually original nationality play into being able to hold on to your estate? And I say this because we had a movement that started in the 1900s. Well, we see it started in really before that. I want to say maybe 1860 or 70, right around there, to where that there was a movement, not only by foreigners, but also by people here that were reclassifying the original Americans under other titles to gain the access of land. So how important is that in holding on and maintaining land, nationality, just to be clear?
Well, for those who actually know about, the mortgage industry, there's a particular clause in that in every, either it's a mortgage or a deed of trust. There's a clause in there that states that if you are not a natural person, you cannot own land or property.
So say that again, so they just make sure they heard that.
So this is in every deed of trust and in every mortgage document. If you read it carefully, they state in there that only a natural person can own land. Now, the question is that according to the United States Code, I forgot what particular section is, but they talk about the Homo sapiens sapiens, and they talk about the Homo sapien. One is a natural person and the other one is not. That's pretty heavy, because we get into that, and we are, because anytime you're dealing with the documentation from the United States, be careful, because they lie a lot.
No, that can't be true, brother. Come on. So that's a lot for you on land. We're going to come back to them as well on some more on land as well. Just solely and just sanguineous has to do with you being born in the Americas and being from the soil. So basically, just sanguineous and just solely are only enforced, are 100% enforced in the Americas: North America, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. So when you look up and you see where they're enforced, that means if you're from the land, then you have a right to the land. If you're not from the land, you don't. So when you look at the continent of Africa and you pull in just solely and just sanguineous, because it'll show you where it applies. There's only one small territory in the entire continent of Africa where just solely and just sanguineous is enforced. It's very small. But in the Americas, it's everywhere. So
Why is that?
I hope you understand how important that is. Okay. Because the Americas would be, if just solely and just sanguineous is heavily enforced only in the Americas, 100%, that means the Americas is basically what you would call the old world, which we went into in Tartary, and also what is a Moor. You can also pull up the video. He mentioned Homo sapiens sapien. You can pull up the video, what is a Moor, also on the same channel. So with that, more on Garvey. So I'm going to go into Chris now to get a response on his take into what piqued his interest or what he wanted to cover in response to the Garvey videos on the same channel. So go ahead, bro.
Well, I guess one of the main things that piqued my interest was the fact that you and I were having a conversation. Well, you had called me and asked me, had I ever heard of, I forgot what it was. Was it the suit he was wearing, or was it the hat?
Yes, it was the garb that
Okay.
Garvey was in.
And I had told you, like, yes, I did. And then so like that. Well, first of all, let me say this: I've never been a Garveyite, like a lot of people. And then when they do bring up Garvey, and you say something that's contrary to what they've been taught, then it kind of starts an argument. So there's that. There's always been that. And then when you brought that topic up to me, that caused me to look into it more. And so, like, you can't really bring up Garvey without bringing up three individuals, in my opinion. And that's one of those is Callie House. The other one is Walter Plecker, and the Reverend James Walker Hood Easton. So with Callie House, Callie, she was the first individual here in the Americas that kind of kicked off the reparations movement. Um, they say her background, and this is documented by, let's see, give me a second here. This is just 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. While you're pulling it up, I want to show the picture as well. The picture he's referring to is a very famous picture of Garvey in his garb. And you'll see that the Masons, even today, they still rock some of the same garb in the lodges. So Chris was the first person to ever point this out to me. And of course, I did a little bit more research on it and find out that Marcus Garvey was a Mason. He attended several lodges. So that's the picture that kicked everything off. Never knew Garvey was a Mason. So, ready?
Yeah. So if you look up Dr. Mary Frances Berry in a biography that they did on Callie House, they document this very thoroughly, how she was the individual that kicked off the reparations movement. So Callie House is generally spoken of in a positive light as well. However, she allegedly went to jail for fraud. So not too long after that, Garvey comes into play, and he takes the momentum that Callie had built up around the reparations movement and kind of finesses that into the Back to Africa movement. Okay. So with that, some of the other things that I found out was that the Back to Africa movement was nothing more but a way for the government to swindle land from the Aboriginal people of America. And I say that because Garvey was basically getting people to invest their life savings into what he was doing. And in some cases, even their land, which is how he was able to take a lot of the things that were passed down, from them through via the family, their family lineages and things of that nature. And it's even well documented that Garvey could have been more than likely an agent for the government. So that's just some of the things that I found out. I'll turn it back over to you because there's some things that other things I'm gonna get into, but you're probably gonna talk about some stuff that'll lead into it. So, because I want to get into like the Red Cross and things like that. So, but I'll turn it over to you first.
Thank you, Suraj.
Okay. The thing is that Marcus Garvey, friend or foe, it's a little hard to tell sometimes because, like I said, because of his associations. But there's a lot of things that's going on about that time. We're in the middle of a war at the time also. World War II is going on about the time that Marcus Garvey is actually coming to the Americas. But again, he's born in 1887, right? Interesting people. There's a guy, Aziz El, who was born in 1880. Then Noel Drew Ali, 1886. Then following him is Marcus Garvey, right? So, but there's several things that's going on at these times. Now, when I started following the timeline of Marcus Garvey from 1900, in the 1900s, where I think he was 13 years old and he's working for his uncle at a printing press. And then he goes, after he finished all that, he's working for another company who's a printing press, but then he goes to travel. In his travels, he ends up in a place called Madrid. The question is, Madrid where? Because there are several places that's called Madrid. Now, I'm assuming that he's probably abroad at the time when he goes to the satellite Madrid, the satellite city Madrid, and not the real Madrid. Because after that, you see, he goes right back to the same college that he came from, took some more courses there, and then he comes and he starts touring America.
So yeah, that would be, just to give the time frame, that would be, this is the time frame of Garvey, pbs.org.
Yes.
So 1913, give it right back to you. 1913, October 13, Garvey's article, British West Indies and the Mirror of Civilization, History Making Colonial Negroes, is published in the African Times Orient Review Magazine. December 10th, January 14th, Garvey visits Paris, Madrid, Monte Carlo, and other European cities. Moving around pretty good, by the way.
Yes.
From a poor family, so to speak. But go ahead.
Yes, yes. Very interesting. He's moving around like that. Somebody's behind the financial, process of this right here. Probably Walter Pleckler. Most likely was him. But in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, 1891, there is a World Fair there. Right. And it's an international World Fair. Now, remember, Garvey was born in 1887, so he's probably old enough now to take in what's happening at this World Fair in 1891. Okay, so if you start following all these World Fairs, it's very interesting. They go all the way back. The earliest one I could find is 1790 from the World's Fairs. Now, these World Fairs are all happening around what? Treaties that are being made, conventions that are being made worldwide. So if you follow the 1836, I want to go back to the 1787 treaty. United States and Morocco, or should be Morocco and the United States. But then you have a World Fair in 1790. Okay, so that's not that much time has passed. So if you follow every time that they have a treaty or something like that, or they having a convention, a World Fair is following it. Now, what is that World Fair about? That World Fair is all about what? Commerce. It's about tech, land, labor, taxes, and commerce, food, whatever, whatever it is, they're transporting. So we're making all these connections with all these different nations, particularly Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, Sardinia, Ireland, so on and so on. Okay. So now the question to me is that when did Garvey become privy to all this stuff like that? And what side are you working on? Because in actuality, when you start thinking about the 6 nations, Portugal, Spain, and the other nations that were coming over here, right? These people are foreigners, but they look like you and me. They foreigners. And so we're talking about what? You solely, and you sang with us again?
Right, correct.
Okay. So when you look at these treaties, such as 1836, which became perpetual, right? That's about land and labor. Okay. I wanted to show a picture here. I don't know if you can show it to the audience.
Sure. You can hold it up to the camera.
But if you look at this bottom picture here, that is the Western Hemisphere. Okay. So the Moors control large portions of other nations. And I'll give you those right here. Some of those nations that they are controlling is the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, Sicily, Naples, Sardinia, Spain, and Portugal, as well as North America and the Caribbean, in addition to Central and South America and North America, west of the imperial demarcation line. Now, that's very interesting because, brother, I know you know about the demarcation line, right? And so when they show you the demarcation line, that's supposed to be the anything east and west of the Allegheny Mountains or the Appalachian Mountains. So you're talking about the 13 United States. Okay. So if we're talking about the 13 United States, we're talking about seacoast land, because we're talking about Eusanguinus and Usoli here. All right.
When you say 13 United States, are you talking about what would most people would have learned about the 13 original colonies?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're calling them colonies because this is the way the United States is. When you read the documents in the English, that's the way they're presented. They're presented as 13 United States or the 13 original colonies.
Okay.
But when you read George Washington's letter to the Sultan, which is in New York, by the way, the city of Fez.
Okay, so real quick, sidebar introduction, hold your point right there. This gets into what's called the exotic maps of the Americas, which a lot of people that are knocking Moors do not understand about the exotic maps of the Americas. Even some Moors do not comprehend the exotic maps of the Americas because they're sticking to some teachings and they're not looking into the original meanings and locations or etymology of the words. So sometimes when somebody is saying Spain in a certain time in history or Granada, okay, there's exotic maps of America that show the territory of Spain and Granada being in the Americas. So when he mentions the city of Fez, which was also, I believe, also called Amsterdam at one time.
Amsterdam, yeah.
Another one is Gotham, right? Gotham, right? Gotham City. What they showed is New York in the movie. So they showing you sometimes. So just understand he's referring to sometimes the original locations of these territories were not where you think they were. So that's the exotic maps of the Americas. But go ahead.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. So I left off with saying that the city of Fez is New York, but in George Washington's letter, he is stating to the Sultan, and he's apologizing for their low production of paying the tribute, which is a tax. And he states that we have no land like that, but they have regencies. They have 13 regencies, right? And they have no mines. Okay, they needed gold and silver for the mines. Okay, and they needed land to produce food so that they can transport. See, because that's the export business all up and down the coast right there, right? So the 13 United States, when you look that up, it'll tell you that it's coastal regencies. And a regency,
Not colonies.
it's a colony, but that colony is a regency. It's a small territory. For instance, when you read the 1880 Madrid Conference, right, taking place in the city of New York, because this is where the Sultan is at. Then you jump to 1906, right? Shall I say it's really 1906? Ain't no old. 1906 and 1912, right? Those Algeciras conferences or treaties did not change from the 1787. I mean, from the 1787 treaty or the 1836 treaty. The terms were still the same, even in 1912. Okay, so if I can explain it to you like this right here, I mentioned earlier that I found out by reading those documents in a different language, in the French language, and then translating it. Any foreigner from any state or for any country that they so-called claim that they came from, right? Whether it was Spain, Portugal, whatever, right? They were limited to 6 square miles from off of eight seaports. 8 seaports now. 6 square miles, which is 24 square miles. Now you do that 8 times or 13 times, right? So you still have a lot of, that's still a lot of land, because I could put at least 500,000 people in 6 miles square.
Correct.
Okay. So the problem is that that's divvied up between all those different nations. You see what I'm saying? We're still the same people, but we're from different locations on the planet. So it's like we get a bump on our head and we forget who we are.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? We look like one another, but we still don't see one another like that. You know what I'm saying? So what you have is that you have all these different countries on the coast fighting one another for land and labor, for position, right? So they're trying to push against us. That's when you find the French and Indian wars. They're trying to push against us to gain more land.
Now, I have a question right there. Please hold your mark. Remember where you are at. I don't want to throw you off. But when the term French and Indian, or I've read before, French Indian wars, there's no comma between the word French, comma, Indian. A lot of times they say French Indian wars. Is that the same people? Were they the French Indians?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this once again, this goes into people thinking it's the French from France in Europe fighting the Indians, when it's a territory of France, Franks, Fox, Indians that are fighting someone, and they just name it as French Indians. Now, in history, if y'all know about revisionist history, how they want to make it try and look like they came over here and just ran through everybody. They got off the ship and started whooping ass. You know what I'm saying? Which does not make any sense. So once again, the etymology of words, just wanted to point that out. The French Indians, Franks, indigenous.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That really what it is is that when you translate that word Indian, they really, the French say indigenous. They do not use the word Indian. The English version use the word Indian because they want to confuse you. You know what I'm saying? Because see, once we figure out that blood is very important in this whole thing that we're doing, then we'll start changing some things. But okay, so you got to think about that. Now, the reason why I showed you that picture earlier of the Western Hemisphere, right? Because this place that you and I are standing on to this very day was called the Sharifian Empire. Up until 1950, by the way. And it still is to this very day. But we're so fractured, we haven't, it's like we're under a spell right now. We're in a mental fog. But from that time, think about this right here. You got a foreigner coming to your land, right? This is the Sharifian Empire over here. This is an Islamic state. From one end of the country to the other.
We got to correct that term, because what I'm finding out too with Moors, y'all got to be careful. It would be Muslim.
Correct.
It would not be Islamic. Islamic is a recent word, unless you're dealing with the I.S.L.M. That's ancient. That is the Muslim way of lifestyle. But saying Islamic, it's like I hear people say Islamic structures. No, it's not. It's Muslim. It's ancient structures. So we got to be real careful about putting Islamic on a lot of things when you're saying Moorish. That was a trick that was done to you to get you under the jurisdiction of another religion or a religion that's not ancient. So remember, if it's recent, there's an organization that runs all religions under 501c3s. And the minute you place yourself in that category, they have jurisdiction over you. Sometimes people wonder why a lot of processes don't work in courts, because you're placing yourself under their jurisdiction by certain words. So we want to make sure that when you say it would be the Muslim, that's why Drew Ali, just you already know this too, brother, and Circle 7, or the Quran, K, spelled with a K, not with a Q. He says that you are Muslims and Mohammedans. He never says you're Muslims. Okay, no disrespect to the work they've done, or why that was established, right? Because we did give that to people at a certain state to get them back on track. Here you go, take that. But that's not something that you are, unless you have decided to be a Muslim or whatever, join a, Orthodox or the Nation of Islam or whatever. Moors are really supposed to be the most balanced people and neutral in the room. So how can you do that? How can you unite people with a religion on your sleeve? So just remember that. It was given to you at a certain time for what purposes? Navigational purposes, right? First Smith Revised Statute has to do with Drew Ali, has to do with how nations deal with each other, right? Kings and queens, right? Not religion. That's correct. So institutions. So we've got off with that, but I just wanted to point that out, brother. But go ahead, take it back.
That's right. Muslim would really be the word, because we're talking about Maghreb, the Moorish Latin, right? Which is all over here. So I have to go into now. All this is going on about the time that Marcus Garvey is coming on the scene. So I'm not sure whether he's following what's going on with these world fairs, because it seems as if though he is. And maybe he learned about the treaties, right? That were actually going on. So think about now, he's got Walter Plecker behind him, but Walter Plecker is a eugenist.
Absolutely.
He's a eugenist. So what is his stake in the game? What does Walter Plecker want out of this whole thing right here?
So real quick, let me take it over to Chris. So either one, could you, in case they don't know who Walter Plecker is, I know a lot of people probably do that are into the indigenous thing and all that, so I'm talking this information. So could one of you elaborate on Walter Plecker? So they know who he is.
Walter Plecker was a white supremacist eugenicist, as Brother Suraj has stated. Most people, once you get into his history, you're going to find out that he was in charge of the United States records of vital statistics. He also had some he also had some dealings with getting the whole vaccinations started. So, and if once we start getting in more into Garvey, uh, so for instance, like the Red Cross, was responsible. Well, what they were doing is they were trying to get Aboriginal people to get vaccinated. They weren't able to do it because, you know, most of them were against that. Garvey comes along after he's finessed his uh, the movement from and took over the reparations movement from Miss Callie. Uh, he was able to talk Aboriginal people into vaccinations, and not all of them, some of them, because a lot of them, when he first started out, they didn't really care for Garvey either. But the ones that he did get talking to doing it, they utilized the organization of the Red Cross along with Garvey's organization, the Black Cross, to vaccinate people. Plecker was responsible for all of this in the background. And his eugenics movement, you guys know what eugenics is. Eugenics is basically, in a nutshell, in simple terms, we're getting rid of all the undesirables. You know, be it people of color, anybody that's not of that they consider, that they deem undesirable, people of color, older people, but it really didn't matter from his standpoint what color you were. It was just that eugenics movement, they don't like certain people, and so that's what he wanted to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, pick it up, brother.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I can see that happening. Now, these vaccinations, right?
Mm.
What would be the point of them wanting to vaccinate somebody? Wouldn't it be to change their blood or to give them something that they don't have inside their blood or in their DNA?
A little bit all the above.
Yeah.
So we're gonna just for the sake of YouTube, people have had their
Deplatform.
strike down the
Deplatform.
platform. We're gonna just use the word POKE instead of the word VAX. So we'll just use the word poke or whatever, because we don't want to get it taken down.
Yeah.
But I do real quick. I do want to admit, want to tell you that we do have articles. Maybe this will be another show, but I do have articles. Chris has information as well regarding after the Tulsa riots, which W.B. Du Bois was just in Tulsa a month before. Matter of fact, Williams, one of the owners of one of a prominent brother in what was called Little Africa before it was called Black Wall Street. It was called Little Africa or Greenwood District. They didn't really call it Black Wall Street. That was Booker T. Washington that did that. So we had them all, and they were calling them Little Africas to even denationalize you then. So this wasn't the locals that were calling it, because the locals of Tulsa, if you know about the Indian Removal Act, theory, so to speak, which some of that is extremely exaggerated. But a lot of the indigenous people in Oklahoma and the surrounding areas, other cities too, Cherokee, Choctaw, Narragansett, the whole nine. That's what you're going to find. That's the terms we were using at the time, and even more in some certain places you find that too, in some of the areas, some of the cities. But I say that to let you know that after the Tulsa riots, they initiated pokes on a large percent of the population. Even after the Tulsa riots, they brought out the Red Cross and other organizations to implement that as well in 1921. So I have the information there. Go ahead, brother, finish on.
Okay. So this has been what's piqued my interest as to what's going on with Garvey, right? So, but at a particular point in his life, it's like he just slowed down, but the organization kept doing other things, you know what I'm saying? But it never panned out to be what it intended to be, right? So I'm thinking about this right here. The Moors, the Mohammedan, or should I say the Muslim state that we were in, we're running the whole Western Hemisphere.
So would that be from the Proclamation line all the way from, what was it, Allegheny Mountains, or would it be?
Yeah, see, that's the issue.
Okay.
The problem is this right here. The way you read it when you pull that up, it's incorrect.
Okay.
Because when you get the French version of it, the ones that actually, I want to say, they took the United States to court, to task. One of the instrumental people that was involved in that was C.M. Bay. His work is codified in Title 22, and I forgot the other brother's name. It was two Moors. They were both, they both had law degrees. Okay, and so they were instrumental in this here 1948 case against the United States. Right, and the case is really about what? Land and labor again. Okay, so we're talking about we're running the whole Western Hemisphere. Okay, but the way they're putting things is that we came over here, people like you and me, we came over here.
Say that again. Trying to make it look like you're a foreigner, huh?
Yeah, they're making it look like that. We came here because they use the word North Africa,
right,
or Africa, not knowing that what they're talking about, we are in North Africa. This is the Migral del Oxa, or northwestern Mexico. We're in North Africa as we speak. Okay, but the interesting thing is that you want me to believe that a minority on the planet came over to Akibalon, what we call in Africa over there today, brought all of us over here and did all these things to us. When we're running the Western Hemisphere, we came over here and now we're slaves in a country that is not our land for 400 years. This is what you want me to believe.
So, and picking up from what you were saying, if you guys want to go to, and this is on Virginia.gov, by the way, it's called, there's a document called Shaping the Constitution. And when you pull it up, you'll see it's literally a handwritten document, like they used to do with the what was those pens called?
Oh man, I almost forgot the name of it. They had the little ink to come out.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a hand document on that site. And it's dated. It's actually dated like November 1943. Plucker dies in 47, but if you look at the document, it states that Walter Plecker's policies pressured state agencies to reclassify most citizens claiming Aboriginal identity as colored. So right there is telling you what they're doing. And they put this individual in charge of the vital statistics records. He was in charge of vital statistics in Virginia first, but then he started doing it from state to state. So
yeah, now, okay, so what I see in that, this is what I mean by the documents that the United States presents, even online to this day. Those documents a lot of times are doctored up because we're talking about a jurisdiction here. The jurisdiction of the United States, if you read the Judiciary Act of 1789, that's a lie too. The the Proclamation of 1763. Then they updated it in 1883 and tried to gain more land. But if you read that proclamation, you can pull the proclamation up today and then they're going to show you the demarcation. It's a lie. It's still a lie. Because, like I said, when you translate it from another language, then you're going to get the real deal. Once it was translated from the French, and they're telling you, even in the English version, that the United States, which is a conglomeration of different countries, it's France, it's a combination of different people, even Great Britain, right? But they all have their regencies, right? They all have their particular mechanisms in place to control their own people. All right. So when you read those documents, they're extending their jurisdiction beyond their boundaries. Their boundary, again, is 6 square miles off of any seacoast. Now, there's only 8 of them.
That would be 6 square miles off of, it would be the northeastern territory.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying you coming in to say New York was one of those states,
Fort,
South Carolina, all the way down to Georgia, right? Those were, each one of those was 6 square miles.
Georgia named after King George.
Mm-hmm. King George, is the first. Then you had the second. He was the one that actually made Georgia the colony, and they had to go back and messed up what he did because it was never supposed to be a colony, right? But think about it. Now that's, if you go to any sea coast and you drive 6 miles away from that coast, you pretty much, you could be safe from a hurricane or anything like that, but the coast is going to get towed up. Okay, so even in that, we were showing our love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, if you will. That we're not going to put you out on the water. So if a storm come in, you're gonna get your stuff towed up. We're gonna put you 6 miles out. See, we was thinkers. This is our land, so we already know what's going to happen. You see what I'm saying? So we're saying, hey, you to be safe, we're going to have to take you 6 miles away from any seashore, right? And 6 miles square, right? So that's a lot of land, right? The problem is that you get all the different nations coming in, and if you follow, they were fighting one another.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? We wasn't even a part of that. So the so-called Revolutionary War, that didn't have nothing to do with us. That was them fighting one another, because that only took place in those small regencies. It didn't take place outside of the Allegheny Mountains or the Appalachian Mountains. The French and Indian Wars, same thing. What was it that was going on with these indigenous tribes?
So real quick also, we want to make sure we clarify the meaning of, and I can give it right back to you, Suraj, or either Chris, the meaning of the United States versus the meaning of America.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure we clarify the differences. How much time we have, brother? 7. All right.
Got 7
And now to split this up into like a couple more parts.
Okay, I got it real quick. Okay, so here's the deal. This book here, Jewish and Crypto-Jewish surnames. There's a chapter in here called Indian Traders, right? And then there's Indian Agents. In 1882, they made a law to keep us from practicing our customs, traditions, and our own marital rights and stuff like that. But who are they doing that to? They wasn't doing it to the empire. They was doing it to the indigenous groups, right? So when you look at the annexation of Texas, real quick, it talks about that the Moors, when you talk about the Bravos River and the Rio Grande, right? They said there, the Mauritanian races began, the Moorish peoples and their Indian associates. But if you translate that out of French, it's indigenous associates. So what we was trying to do, we was trying to galvanize all of the Moorish Empire to come under one banner of nationality, but you had those groups that did not want to do it. So they remained in their own indigenous customs, but they became easy targets. and they became the Indian traders.
So make sure you pay attention to that word Indian traders, because it never tells you what they were trading.
Exactly.
So once again, etymology, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Chris, and we'll close it out. Etymology of the word traders. Remember, sometimes you gotta look at the spelling over time. Traitors. See, y'all be saying Moors is dirty. Them dirty Moors. And really, it was people that wanted to remain outside of the empire because they wanted to do something different, that then were making treaties and agreements, excuse me, not treaties, but alliances with foreigners. And that's where the infiltration came in. We can get into it more. Chris, go ahead. We want to wrap it up.
So America, Amaruka or Amaru, familiar with Amaru, Tupac, but America, everyone thinks it's comes from Amerigo Vespucci, which it doesn't. It means land of the plumed serpent. You can there's several different researchers and that have stated this. Graham Hancock, one of them. You can look up some of his books, but you know, again, Amaruka, and then the U.S. is basically a corporation. So,
Absolutely. The United States is a corporation restricted to what, 20 square miles in the District of Columbia?
actually 10 square miles. Yeah.
America is the territory, it's the people. It is not the corporation, it's the people. So when Donald Trump said make America great, he's talking about the people. You never ever talk about the damn corporation. You only ever said the United States. Y'all missing it.
And quiet as it's kept, you are a corporation as well. You're all caps name. Corporation can't deal with a living, breathing individual, can only deal with another corporation.
That gets into the straw man. They're making it into a fiction. So how many minutes I got left, brother? 2 minutes. So with 2 minutes, the people in South America and other places, when we say Moors, we're not saying us alone. We're talking about you too, okay? Tarhu Mari or Mori, one of the original languages spoken in South America, Mexico, the Southwest American states. Others were Mixtec, Sparteca City, El Maya, okay? And then also, where's the other one I wanted to cover real quick? About, ancient nobles of Peru wore fez called the Yantu. So all them tribes in South America and everybody that's in Mexico and the Caribbean, we're not talking about Moors as being just restrictive to people. That's the term that was applied to a lot of people in the Americas all over, okay? So we're going to conclude right here. Make sure you reach out to the brothers, you have information. Want to thank Sangria, MediaMadeMagazine@gmail.com. We're going to come back. Yeah. More series later on. So until there be more series later on, we're going to get into Garvey a little bit more in the next series. So thank you. And make sure y'all reach out. Let's build. We're not here to debate, argue. That's been done already. We did that shit years ago. Y'all lost even years ago. Peace.